Taking Obama again as an example, he seems sensitive about economic injustice. But as a politician, there's been very little he's been able to get done outside of reversing some of the Bush-era tax cuts on people making over $400,000 a year. He talks a good talk about the wealthy needing to do more to contribute their fair share. He talks constantly about the middle class, doing more for the middle class, but he talks very little about the poor, the working class, the working poor, the lower class. When you listen to his rhetoric, the gap he seems worried about closing is the gap between the middle class and the wealthy. And again, here's a place where we can see King's dream is not fulfilled, not by Obama, but by the entire country. King dreamt of closing the income gap, but that gap has widened even more since his death, and in fact is at its largest since 1929. These are some words spoken by our former Secretary of Treasury, Alan Greenspan, in 2005. He said, "The income gap between the rich and the rest of the U.S. population has become so wide and is growing so fast that it might eventually threaten the stability of democratic capitalism itself." As a nation, we are more materialistic than ever, more greedy than ever, with the haves taking more and more from the have-nots. If King was resurrected today and told that we have spent $4 trillion on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan with 250,000 people dead, 250,000 of God's children dead, at the cost of $4 trillion that could have gone to elevating the economic status of the poor in this country and all over the world, surely he would say that his dream has been shattered, even as he was staring into the face of our first black president. When King was only 23 years old, before he was the King, and when he was simply known to his family and friends as ML, he was courting a woman named Coretta Scott. In one letter to her, ML wrote, "Let us continue to hope, work, and pray that in the future we will live to see a warless world, a better distribution of wealth, and a brotherhood that transcends race or color. This is the gospel that I will preach to the world." Again, it was a warless world, a better distribution of wealth, and a brotherhood that transcends race or color. The three pillars of the gospel are the inverted versions of the evil triplets of racism, materialism, and militarism that he spent the last 16 years of his all too brief life working against, calling for both a revolution and an evolution of values. This is what he preached to the world, and this is what we must remember when we pay homage to his dream. To remember him means to not forget the other two values that he stood for besides the brotherhood of all races. Clearly, we, as a people, do want to remember King. He's one of only 2 Americans that has a federal holiday in his name, guaranteeing his time set aside to remember him. He is one of only 5 Americans in history and the only non-president to warrant a memorial and a mall at our nation's capital, guaranteeing a place to remember him. All over the nation, indeed, all over the world, people celebrate his life and his message. Or what we're suggesting in his talk, we celebrate only part of his message. And can you really celebrate a man's life work if you only focus on one narrow part of that work? Are we really remembering King the man when we choose to forget most of the man's message? If we truly want to make real the ideal in our founding documents and live in a country dedicated to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we have to stop killing each other in the suburbs of Newtown and Tucson and the deserts of Iraq and Afghanistan. We have to call for the end of militarism. If we truly want to make real the ideal in our founding documents that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal, then we have to call for the end of materialism and greed and close the aching gap between those who have far too much and those who have far too little. We have to address economic inequality. And when we do these things, we will also be addressing racial inequality, because we know that it is disproportionately our black and brown brothers and sisters who are killing each other at home, and it is disproportionately our black and brown brothers and sisters who go and fight our wars and kill our black brothers and sisters, black and brown brothers and sisters abroad. And we know it's our white brothers and sisters who benefit financially from all this militarism. We know it is disproportionately our black and brown brothers and sisters in this country who make up the underclass and the working poor. And we know the extreme poverty in the third world is primarily suffered by our black and brown brothers and sisters there. The values that King preached are the values that humanistic psychologists teach and use to treat the mostly white brothers and sisters, the mostly middle to upper class brothers and sisters who come to us, but we can do more. I firmly believe it is incumbent upon us to take up King's mantle and fight for not only the evolution of clients in the consulting room, but for the evolution of our country, to recognize that we live in what King called the world house, in which we are no more or no less God's children than anyone else in any other room in the house. And here too, King can show us the way. When he was 19, he knew that being a preacher did not mean just preaching to the souls of his individuals to improve their lives. He wrote, "Above all, I see the preaching ministry as a dual process. On the one hand, I must attempt to change the souls of individuals so that their societies might be changed. On the other hand, I must attempt to change the societies so the individual soul will have a chance. Therefore, I must be concerned about unemployment, slums, and economic insecurity. I am a profound advocator of the social gospel." The social gospel, I believe, is the humanistic gospel as well, and we are all engaged in this dual process of actualizing individuals for society and actualizing society for individuals, while paying attention to just who those individuals are whom we're treating. Then we can join King in solving what he called the great new problem of mankind, in which we have to live together, black and white, Easterners and Westerners, Gentiles and Jews, Catholics and Protestants, Muslim and Hindu, a family unduly separated in ideas, culture, and interests who, because we can never again live without each other, must learn somehow in this one big world to live with each other. So now, with the depth of King's vision in mind, with the broad scope of his vision and his world-embracing triplets of values in mind, perhaps we can listen anew and take something else away from his I Have a Dream speech.